Hello everyone, welcome to Coffee Cup Enlightenment. Today's topic to be announced, we'll wait and see how it goes. The definition of enlightenment is to be aware or to notice that the idea of you that you have in your mind is just that, an idea. That's the beginning of waking up and returning to your normal state, which is just awareness without any content to it, which then can become free to be all content without any consequences to it. And that's why it's considered unlimited. The idea of you, is it an idea? You can ask the question, is it true? And I can talk a little bit to sort of give some evidence, but I have had a little bit of conversations with people with this before, and it seems it does need a little bit more convincing of life to be lived a bit longer before this becomes apparent that the idea of you is just that, an idea. What isn't an idea? It's a thought form, and it's very important to recognize this idea of you. It comes and goes throughout the day. It's not constant. Its very nature, if you were to label it as constant or non-constant, it is categorized as a non-constant. Sometimes it forgets to upload in the morning. So if the idea of you was you, how could it be you if it forgets to upload in the morning, but you're still awake, or you're still conscious, yet the idea of you has failed to upload. Also throughout the day, the idea of you, it fades away. Sometimes it's forgotten for a moment, and during that moment there's a feeling of more peacefulness, and the idea of you was actually it wasn't there when you were born, hadn't been developed yet. It took great convincing by your people of surroundings to actually push this idea upon you, because who knows, maybe it's not even really that natural for a baby to take on an idea of them. I don't know, unless you experiment just to see whether that's true. But the idea of you is forced upon you, you can say, by the people of your surroundings. And the idea of you is subject to 7 billion different opinions. Oh boy. And every one of them's different. So how can you be 7 billion different opinions? And so, we're trying to get to the point here that you're not this idea. Just to recognize this non-constance to it. I've had someone say to me, "Oh, but I'm developing. That's who I am. I'm developing." But you can't be something that's a non-constant. If this idea of you is coming and going. There must be something that's here 24/7, and that something is just you as consciousness, formless consciousness. Where does this idea live? It just, you can say it lives in your mind's eye. So as soon as you wake up in the morning, it's there, and and, uh, and just every day recognizing this idea as just that, an idea, is waking up and just noticing it. And it does feel, even though I have had an enlightenment experience before for 1.5 days, which became apparent that I was not this idea of me because it totally disappeared. And in that time, in that 1.5 days, 10,000 kilogram difference. That's the only way I can use to describe it. It was like a massive weight you're carrying by your consciousness focusing on this idea and giving all its attention to this idea, and it's pulled into this idea because it seems so real as who we are. And when all of a sudden that idea was disappeared in the morning, I woke up 6 a.m. one morning many years ago, and I was like about 5 years ago or something, or a few years, I've got no idea now how long ago. And then as I woke up in that morning, the idea was outside of me, and it was, as I woke up that morning, it was like 10,000 kilogram difference of how I am now in this state talking to you now. So even though I might be a peaceful ego right now, um, the contrast difference is, as I'm speaking now, I'm not unplugged. After the 1.5 days occurred, the consciousness just returned back to its focus on this idea. There was nothing I could do to stop it, and but that gave me the evidence in a very, very, very irrefutable um, evidence that who I am is not this idea, because I was living for 1.5 days in the absence of that idea, and the clarity, and it was the way I can explain it, which is the state of the enlightenment, is it was normal. I returned back to normal state, and it was all that attention given to that idea was just not given to that idea anymore, and it created a feeling of 10,000 kilogram weight lifted difference. So it felt heavy to be drawn into that idea and focus on that idea like it's your idol. Focused on that idea as if it's your identity. And your very identity is always there 24/7, which is the attention, the awareness, the focus, the spotlight, the flashlight of attention. Where you point that attention gives life to ideas, a life that they don't really have. It's it's giving your attention to ideas is gives ideas they can be used to turn into your identity. And then the video I'm going to finish soon. So the last aspect, if there's any evidence I could give, is that whether it's a positive idea that your attention focuses on and believes itself to be, or a negative idea. Imagine that. Imagining focusing on yourself as a negative idea, which we all do have, and we're absolutely convinced we are that, and experience the dysfunction of the that negative idea of what it does. But both the positive and the negative are false. They're just because they're just ideas. Even if you're extremely successful at creating a positive idea of who you are, You will feel that sense of dissatisfaction, which is meant to be there, because it's just an idea. Your natural inherent awakenness that's born upon you will show you the way. No matter how great the idea you make of yourself, it will always show up as false and dissatisfying. And it's meant to do that. But Jesus is saying, deny thyself is probably the self he's talking about is the idea self. He's not talking about you as formless consciousness, as awareness, as the attention. He's talking about the idea that you hold so true to your heart as who you are. He's talking about deny that, deny thyself, deny thyself, deny thyself. The most powerful meditation you could do is to deny thyself. Deny every time that idea pops up, every time its manifestation of its counter reactions and actions and beliefs and feelings and its feelings. Understand the process. The idea of you is making the judgment. The idea of you is actually having a feeling reaction to its own judgment and interpretation. And then the idea of you is comes up with strategies to try to repair itself. On and on this loop goes of the judger, the victim to its own judgments, and then the savior to the judgments and the damage caused to it. And if you identify with any three of these stages, you're identifying with an idea. And the last point, if I can remember. So that's the cycle of the idea. It is the one that's actually feeling. And then and that's very important, that it's the feelings are not our feelings, because that 10,000 kilogram weight lifted difference I felt, the consciousness is incapable of being touched in any way. It's untouchable. It's effortless is the attributes of it. It cannot be offended. It was incapable to be offended in the enlightenment state. And that's not, that sounds, in the comparison to our egoic state, which is the state of giving your attention to an idea and misinterpreting your identity as an idea. The comparison is, sounds like, the heavenly realm. And what you're living in by giving all your attention to ideas, the hell realm, because it just creates a predictable Groundhog Day over and over and over again. But it's good that it does that Groundhog Day, because then hopefully it brings you to waking up to say, hey, this is just an idea. And but the hell realm is not your reaction. It's not. It's nothing. It has nothing. It's completely impersonal. It's just a feeling of the ideahood, its feeling and its interpretations. Oh yeah, and the last point was that it's the things that